Welcome to Deep Dive. Today we're going to be exploring something that I think is so fundamental to who we are as
Yeah,
adults,
yeah.
and that's the lasting impact of our childhood. And you shared some really compelling material that dives into this idea of the wounded inner child. Not just a catchy phrase, it's really a powerful lens for understanding how our early family life and emotional experiences continue to shape us.
Yeah, it's remarkable how these early years really act as a kind of foundational blueprint. And in this deep dive, we'll be unpacking what this inner child truly represents, how your family environment actually molds your brain, and your patterns and relationships, the different types of emotional scars these early experiences can leave, and even the reach of generational trauma. We'll also look at what happens when these early needs are ignored.
And importantly, we're not just identifying problems, we're going to be exploring paths toward reconnection and healing, all grounded in psychological understanding and scientific research. Our goal is to help you understand the subtle ways your past might be influencing your current thoughts, feelings,
Right.
and relationships,
Mhm.
and what you can actively do about it. So let's start by really defining this inner child. It's more than just nostalgia.
Exactly. The material you've provided makes it clear that the inner child isn't simply a sentimental idea, it's the actual developmental imprint of your early experiences, etched onto your nervous system, shaping your core beliefs about yourself and the world, and influencing your immediate emotional responses. Think of it as the foundation upon which your adult self was built.
And the source material also brought up Carl Jung's interesting perspective on this. How does that fit in?
Jung offered a valuable way to understand these different aspects. He spoke of the divine child as representing your inherent innocence potential and sense of wholeness that you're born with. But he also described the shadow, which is like a repository of your repressed childhood pain, unmet needs, and the parts of yourself you might have learned to hide. Recognizing both these aspects offers a richer understanding of your inner child.
So it sounds like the environment you grew up in had a very real, tangible effect, even on the structure of your brain.
Precisely, the material highlights the incredible adaptability of the brain in early childhood, particularly from birth to around 7 years old. This is neuroplasticity in action during this time. Consistent loving care literally helps wire your brain for trust and security. The Center on the Developing Child at Harvard has done extensive research illustrating this.
And what happens in environments that
Okay.
aren't so nurturing?
On the other hand, if your early environment was characterized by chaos, neglect, or inconsistency, your brain could have been wired for survival. This directly impacts the development of key areas like the amygdala, which is highly sensitive to threat, the hippocampus, vital for forming memories, especially emotional ones, and the prefrontal cortex, which helps with emotional regulation and rational thought. So early stress can shape these crucial structures.
And the source material emphasizes that. These aren't just fleeting effects. They can have long-lasting consequences.
That's a critical point. Persistent emotional neglect or having your feelings regularly dismissed or invalidated can lead to what's known as toxic stress. This chronic state of stress dysregulates your nervous system. Research, such as the work by Shankov and his team in 2012, indicates that this can significantly increase your vulnerability to anxiety, to depression, or a general feeling of emotional instability as an adult.
It's almost as if those early experiences create a template for how you connect with others, especially in romantic relationships. That's where the idea of attachment styles comes in.
Right. Exactly. Attachment theory offers a powerful framework for understanding how your early interactions with primary caregivers shape the patterns you tend to repeat in your adult relationships. The material you shared clearly differentiates between secure attachment, which develops when you felt consistently safe and cared for as a child, leading to a fundamental trust in yourself and others.
And what about the other attachment styles that the material mentions?
Then there are the insecure attachment styles, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. These often arise from experiences with caregivers who were inconsistent, unpredictable, or even frightening. These early relational patterns can create internal conflict and make it challenging for you to form healthy, trusting, intimate relationships in adulthood.
So whether your parents were emotionally available or not really laid the groundwork for how you see yourself in relation to others.
Precisely, the material underscores that even if a parent was physically present, a lack of emotional attunement, not truly seeing or responding to your emotional needs, can send a powerful message that your feelings are either overwhelming or simply don't matter. This can become a deeply ingrained belief that significantly impacts how you navigate intimacy and emotional connection later in life.
The source material then goes into some specific types of family wounds.
Let's talk about emotional neglect first. It sounds like it's more than just a parent forgetting a school event.
Indeed, emotional neglect, as the material described, is the pain of what wasn't said, the emotional support and validation that wasn't offered, and the consistent ignoring or minimization
Hmm.
of your feelings
Yeah.
and experiences. It often leaves no obvious physical scars, but can create a profound sense of emptiness,
Hmm.
of feeling unseen or unimportant at a fundamental level.
And then there's narcissistic parenting and the idea of enmeshment. That sounds quite complex
Yeah.
in how it plays out. It is narcissistic parenting often involves a parent who struggles to see their child as a separate individual with their own distinct needs, feelings, and aspirations. Instead, the child may be seen as an extension of the parent's own ego or needs. This can lead to enmeshment. The boundaries between parent and child become blurred. As the material highlights, you might have learned to prioritize the parent's needs and feelings above your own, hindering the development of a strong, independent
Sense of self.
And what about the impact of over-control and
Yeah.
conditional love? I think a lot of people might recognize elements of that in their upbringing.
Absolutely. When love and approval were consistently contingent on meeting certain expectations or
Yeah.
behaving in specific ways, being the good girl
Mm.
or the successful boy. Yeah, the material suggests that you may have learned that your authentic self wasn't inherently worthy of love. This can create a deep-seated need for external validation
Mhm.
and a fear of being truly yourself, for fear of losing approval or affection. It's quite sobering to consider that these early experiences can even have ripple effects
Mm.
across generations
Mhm.
with the concept of generational trauma.
The source material touches on the compelling field of epigenetics, which is showing us that traumatic experiences can actually alter the way your genes are expressed. This means that the effects of trauma experienced by previous generations can in some ways be passed down biologically, not just through learned behaviors and family stories, as research by Yehuda and colleagues in 2015 indicates.
So it's more than just picking up family habits. There should be a deeper, almost biological transmission.
Exactly. There can be a transmission of what the material refers to as shame and silent burdens. When families develop unspoken rules that suppress grief, pain, or difficult emotions, these unresolved issues can manifest across generations in various ways, perhaps as unexplained physical symptoms, heightened anxiety, or even tendencies toward addiction.
What happens when all of these early wounds and the needs of the inner child are simply ignored as you navigate adulthood?
The material describes a phenomenon called the mask of the functional adult. These are individuals who may appear outwardly successful. Perhaps you hold a good job, maintain relationships, and meet societal expectations, yet internally, you might experience a persistent sense of emptiness, dissatisfaction, or feeling like something is missing. This can happen because the adult is performing, but the underlying emotional needs of the inner child remain unmet and unacknowledged.
And those unmet needs can manifest in very specific ways that might be impacting you, like chronic anxiety, for example.
Precisely chronic anxiety, as well as patterns of people-pleasing. And persistent self-doubt are often not just random personality quirks. The source material frames them as survival mechanisms that likely developed in childhood as a way to cope with unmet needs.
Right.
Safety, validation, and consistent care. They can be deeply rooted in a fear of rejection. That was learned early on.
So if you're recognizing some of these patterns in yourself, what can you actually do? How do you begin to reconnect with this inner child and start the process of healing?
The material suggests several powerful and direct approaches. One is engaging in inner child dialogue and letter writing. This involves intentionally reaching out to that younger part of yourself. Perhaps you could try writing a letter to your younger self, acknowledging their experiences, asking what was needed then, and offering the reassurance and support you might need now. This can be a very direct way to begin bridging the gap between past wounds and present healing.
That sounds like a very active way to engage with those feelings. What about somatic healing and emotional reparenting? That seems to focus more on the body.
It does. The source material emphasizes that healing isn't just about understanding things intellectually. Trauma and unmet needs are often held within your nervous system and your body. Practices like somatic experiencing, breathwork exercises, what's called inner reparenting, consciously giving yourself the nurturing safety and validation you may have lacked as a child, can help to release these stored experiences and promote emotional integration. Healing really does happen in the body, as well as in the mind.
The source material also highlights some key scientific research that's really informed our understanding of the impact of early experiences.
Yes, the ACEs study, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, is a really significant piece of research. It clearly demonstrated a strong correlation between early adversity things like abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction, and a wide range of negative health outcomes in adulthood, including both physical and mental health issues, as documented by the CDC and Kaiser Permanente.
That really underscores just how far-reaching the impact of childhood can be.
It does, and the work of Bessel van der Kolk, particularly his book, The Body Keeps the Score, is also incredibly influential. He emphasizes how traumatic experiences can disconnect you from your own bodily sensations and awareness, and he highlights that reconnecting with your body is a crucial pathway to healing and integrating those experiences.
It sounds like seeking professional support can be a really valuable part of this journey for many people.
Absolutely. The source material points to therapies like IFS or internal family systems, which utilizes parts work. This approach helps you to identify and understand the different parts within yourself, including those wounded child parts that carry the pain of the past, as well as the protective parts that may have developed to help you cope with that pain.
And there are other specific therapy modalities that the material mentions as being helpful.
Yes, therapies like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, sensoromotor therapy, and somatic experiencing are highlighted as particularly effective because they go beyond simply talking about difficult experiences. They engage your whole self, your mind, your body, and your emotions to facilitate deeper and more comprehensive healing.
It's important to remember that. The journey of healing isn't always smooth or predictable, is it?
That's a crucial point to understand. The material explicitly states that healing is not linear. There will likely be ups and downs. Days when you feel like you're making progress, and other days when it might feel like you're taking a step backward. It's so important to recognize that these setbacks are a normal part of the process. The inner child heals through consistent presence, self-compassion, and gentle attention, not through striving for some idealized, perfect outcome.
The source material also briefly mentions real voices, stories of the wounded child healing.
Yes, while the specifics of these stories aren't detailed here, their inclusion is significant. It underscores the fact that healing from emotional neglect and difficult family dynamics is absolutely possible. The common thread in many of these narratives is often a shift from focusing on external circumstances to an inward exploration of their own experiences and unmet needs.
This has been such an insightful exploration. It really highlights how the past continues to shape our present in ways we might not always be aware of.
It does, and the conclusion of the source material beautifully summarizes this. You were never too sensitive. You were just unheard. You weren't overreacting. You were overfeeling. In a world that underheld you, it offers a powerful reframe of those childhood experiences with understanding and validation.
And what's the empowering takeaway from all of this?
The material concludes with a really empowering message that you now have the capacity to become the safe and nurturing parent you always needed for yourself. This isn't about trying to erase the past, but about integrating those experiences and finding a sense of inner peace and wholeness in your present.
We hope this deep dive into the concept of the wounded inner child has provided you with some valuable insights and perhaps a new way of understanding your own experiences.
The journey of understanding and healing your inner child is a deeply personal one, and there is always more to explore.
If this topic resonated with you, we encourage you to consider looking into some of the resources we mentioned, such as the ACE study or the work of Bessel van der Kolk, or perhaps exploring therapeutic modalities like IFS or somatic experience.
What stood out to you most in our discussion today? What questions are you left with? We really encourage you to take some time to reflect on these points.
And if you found this deep dive helpful and want to join us for future explorations into topics designed to help you understand yourself and the world around you more deeply, please subscribe, like this episode, and click the bell to be notified of our new content.